Okay, quick video because I'm doing movement in the night for the Allies, which as I've said before, they can only move half their movement allowance. I need to discuss various things like zones of control and stacking limits. Now, for stacking, this is quite straightforward. So you can have a maximum of 6 stacking points may occupy a single hex at the end of each phase. Now, stacking points are these things. You see these little like pool balls with numbers in them on the left hand side, are 3 there. That's the number of stacking points, not to be confused with the number of steps, which are these dots to the right under the 50. Now, in this case, they're the same, but they're not always the same. Stacking. Some Commonwealth units, armoured units, do have stacking points at level 4, but they can still stack together with an infantry unit from the same HQ. Stacking it's enforced only really at the start and end of movement stuff, so you can overstack if you're moving stuff around, so long as you make sure everything's okay afterwards. If there are any stacking violations at the end of a movement, well, it says actually at the end of a phase, you have to eliminate units sufficient to bring stacking into the 6 or below level. Other things we got are zones of control. Zones of control are, you've got your own zones of control and enemy zones of control. So basically a unit projects a 6 hex zone of control around itself, and enemy units do a 6 hex enemy zone of control. It's possible, obviously, that both sides will exert zone of control into the same hex. Multiple zones of control have no additional effects on anything. The basic thing, mainly, there's no movement points extra to enter an enemy zone of control, but to move from one zone of control to another does cost +2 movement. Another thing they can't do, you can't move directly from one enemy zone of control to another. There is an exception to that. If you're completely surrounded by enemy zones of control, one company within a stack can move using all its movement to another hex in an enemy zone of control. Another thing, when you're doing that, you've got to leave a friendly unit in the enemy zone of control that you exit, and you've got to be moving closer to a supply source. There are exceptions to enemy zone of control, the +2 movement. If it's a night turn, it doesn't cost you anything to move to another enemy, to another hex in enemy zone of control. The other one is holding the line. If you have 2 units in a hex, you can move out of an enemy zone of control so long as you leave one unit in place within that hex. Zones of control extend across all hex sides except all C hex sides, and extend into all hexes except city hexes. Other effects of zone of control: retreats. Stacker units will suffer a step loss if it retreats into an enemy zone of control. A friendly unit in the hex containing the enemy zone of control does not negate this for purposes of retreat. We've also got effects on line of supply. Lines of supply cannot be traced through a vacant hex in an enemy zone of control. A friendly unit does negate that enemy zone of control when tracing supply. Another thing you may have noticed are these red cubes, because it's not always obvious where your HQs are, and they're going to be really, really important in tracing supply, which we'll see that in a minute. I've decided to actually mark all the HQs clearly on the map. These are the divisional HQs. I'll also be marking the core HQ, maybe with a different colour.